The United States and Venezuela have agreed to reestablish diplomatic relations following the ouster of former President Nicolás Maduro in January. This move comes after recent visits by U.S. officials aimed at promoting a democratic transition in the oil-rich nation. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez expressed optimism that the renewed ties will contribute to the social and economic well-being of the Venezuelan people. The decision to re-establish diplomatic relations was announced on Thursday, March 5, 2026. Following a two-day visit by U.S. Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum to Venezuela. The talks focused on a phased process aimed at creating conditions for a peaceful democratic transition. Both U.S. officials and the Venezuelan government are aiming to encourage foreign investment in the country's mining and oil sectors, which are crucial for potential economic recovery. Relations between the U.S. and Venezuela were severed in 2019 when the Maduro government closed its embassy following U.S. support for opposition leader Juan Guaidó. This latest development is seen as a significant shift in the historically adversarial relationship between the two nations. The re-establishment of diplomatic ties marks a new chapter in U.S.-Venezuela relations, with both sides optimistic about the potential for increased cooperation and mutual benefit. The situation is still developing, and officials are expected to continue discussions aimed at stabilizing the political and economic landscape in Venezuela. Attorneys general from 24 states, led by Oregon, Arizona, California, and New York, have filed a lawsuit against President Trump over his new global tariffs, imposed after the Supreme Court struck down previous tariffs. The lawsuit argues that Trump is overstepping his authority by imposing tariffs under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. This has never been invoked before. Critics claim these tariffs will raise costs for businesses and consumers, potentially costing American households around $1.200 annually. The tariffs, set at 15%, are limited to 5 months unless extended by Congress. The states argue that Section 122 was not designed to address trade deficits and should not be used to impose sweeping tariffs. They contend that the president is misusing his powers granted by Congress. Meanwhile, the White House maintains that Trump is acting within his legal rights. This lawsuit follows a Supreme Court ruling that struck down Trump's previous tariffs imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The case, now before the U.S. Court of International Trade in New York, could have significant implications for trade policies and consumer costs. If successful, it could lead to refunds for companies and consumers affected by the tariffs and limit the president's ability to impose trade barriers. The situation is still developing, with both sides preparing their arguments in court. The United States and several Middle Eastern countries are turning to Ukraine for expertise in countering Iranian-shot drones. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has communicated with leaders from the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait to explore potential cooperation. The Russia-Ukraine peace talks have been delayed due to the escalating conflict in the Middle East involving these drones. Zelensky announced that Ukraine will provide its low-cost drone defense technology to allies in the Middle East. Ukrainian innovations, which can cost as little as $1,000, have proven effective in countering Iranian drones and are now gaining international attention. The transfer of this technology reflects the evolving nature of modern warfare, where technological advancements play a crucial role in defense strategies. The delay in the Russia-Ukraine peace talks is attributed to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Ukrainian officials emphasize that assistance to Middle Eastern countries will only be provided if it does not compromise Ukraine's own defense capabilities and adds leverage to diplomatic efforts to stop the Russian invasion. As geopolitical conflicts continue to evolve and intersect, Ukraine's drone defense expertise stands out as a vital resource for countries facing similar threats. The situation remains fluid, with officials preparing for future diplomatic engagements aimed at addressing both the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the Middle East crisis. The U.S. and Israel have intensified military strikes on Iran, resulting in significant casualties and damage. Iran's foreign minister has denounced these attacks and stated that Iran is no longer interested in negotiating with the U.S. The conflict has expanded. involving Azerbaijan and raising concerns over oil supply routes in the Persian Gulf. The escalation began after the US and Israel targeted and killed Iran's supreme leader, a move that has significantly altered the diplomatic landscape. More than 1,200 people have been killed in Iran. 4 health workers lost their lives as a result of attacks on hospitals. Iran's Red Crescent reported widespread damage to residential areas in Urmia, while the World Health Organization verified 13 attacks on health infrastructure. Iran's Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, said that Iran is not seeking a ceasefire and sees no reason to negotiate with the US after previous failed attempts at dialogue. Azerbaijan, to Iran's north, claims that Iranian drones struck an airport and a school, leading to injuries. President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan vowed to respond to what he called a terrorist act. The conflict also affects Gulf state energy infrastructure, with Bahrain reporting an Iranian missile attack on a state-run oil refinery. The critical Strait of Hormuz, a major oil transit route, remains effectively closed, impacting global energy supplies, especially for China, the world's largest importer of oil and natural gas. As the conflict continues to spread and intensify, the situation remains fluid with no immediate signs of de-escalation or diplomatic breakthroughs. Iranian military forces have launched attacks on multiple Gulf nations using drones and missiles, escalating tensions in the region. The recent strikes have prompted Gulf nations, particularly Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, to reassess their neutrality and the strategic value of hosting U.S. military bases. The attacks have raised serious concerns over the risk of drawing more countries into the conflict, especially given the significant military presence of the United States in the region. Missile defense systems in the Gulf have been active, but are struggling to counter the threat posed by Iranian drones. Economic impacts are also being felt, with damage to tourism and airports reported. This leads to an estimated loss of over $1 billion. The Gulf nations have been working to maintain stability, but these latest attacks threaten that delicate balance. Iran claims its actions are aimed at U.S. interests rather than directly targeting the Gulf states. However, this claim is contested by Gulf nation statements. The attacks have the potential to prompt a more active stance against Iran from Gulf nations, potentially drawing in additional countries and further militarizing the region. The situation remains tense, with Gulf nations and the international community closely monitoring the developments and assessing their next steps. Since the joint attack with the United States on Saturday, Israel has faced relentless drone and missile strikes from Iran and Hezbollah, forcing many residents to take refuge in underground shelters. In Tel Aviv, the attacks have damaged homes, displaced families, shifted critical services like hospitals underground to ensure safety and continuity of operations. Sheikh Zevi, a mother from Tel Aviv, described the impact on her family. Her home was hit by a missile, causing damage to windows in her children's room. She and her daughter, Gaia, have only recently returned to the damaged apartment, trying to find moments of normalcy in the face of ongoing sirens and threats. Meanwhile, 84-year-old Dorica Israeli, Shanine Roth's grandmother, reiterated the sentiment felt by many residents, saying, "Here, the wars don't end," reflecting the ongoing nature of the conflict. Throughout the city, volunteers like Ron Shafroni, an 18-year-old Israeli-American, are helping clean up and repair damaged homes, embodying a sense of community resilience. Dr. Yoel Harivan, vice president at Sheba Medical Center, explained how hospital operations have shifted underground to protect patients and staff during the attacks. The mall in Dizengoff, which now serves as the largest shelter, accommodates thousands of evacuees who seek safety and a semblance of daily life. The situation in Israel continues to evolve as the country deals with the aftermath of the joint attack and ongoing threats from Iran and Hezbollah. Officials are working to protect civilians and maintain essential services amid the ongoing conflict. President Donald Trump has dismissed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in a major cabinet shakeup. Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma has been nominated to replace Noem as the new Homeland Security Secretary. Noem's tenure was marked by significant controversy, particularly over her handling of immigration policies, and the Department of Homeland Security's emergency response efforts. She faced bipartisan criticism for these issues, and was also heavily criticized for a $220 million ad campaign that prominently featured her. The decision to oust Noem came after her testimony this week, during which she confirmed the president's prior approval of the ad campaign. This admission reportedly infuriated President Trump, leading to her dismissal. Senator Mullen's nomination, which was announced on March 5, 2026, is expected to face a smoother confirmation process in the Senate, with only 50 votes needed for approval. Republicans view Mullen as a strong candidate due to his loyalty and favorable media presence. However, Democrats are closely watching Mullen's stance on immigration policies, with some hoping his nomination could facilitate negotiations on the ongoing shutdown at ICE. The situation is evolving. The confirmation process for Senator Mullen is expected to include debates over the Department of Homeland Security's policies and role. In remarks made Thursday at the White House, President Donald Trump suggested that a deal between the United States and Cuba could be on the horizon. The president made the comments during an event celebrating the Major League Soccer champion and her Miami team. Trump indicated a potential deal with Cuba, though he emphasized the need to wait a couple of weeks before moving forward. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has been focused on the situation with Iran, expressed caution about advancing the U.S.-Cuba negotiations until the Iran issues are resolved. The president highlighted the significance of the timing, stating they want to make a deal so badly. "You have no idea." Trump further noted, "We're going to celebrate that separately. I just want to wait a couple of weeks." This strategic approach by the U.S. administration reflects a careful handling of international relations, prioritizing the resolution of tensions with Iran before addressing the U.S.-Cuba relationship. The situation remains under development, with officials planning to proceed cautiously while navigating complex international dynamics. In Miami, Florida, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller called on Latin American nations to adopt a more aggressive stance against drug cartels. The officials urged regional allies to take stronger measures to combat the threat posed by these criminal organizations, warning that the U.S. will act independently if other countries do not take decisive action. During a speech at the U.S. Southern Command, Hegseth emphasized the shared Christian heritage between the U.S. and Latin America, stressing the importance of a unified approach to addressing the issue of drug cartels. He noted that the current methods of law enforcement have not been sufficient and that a more proactive and assertive strategy is necessary. Miller echoed this sentiment, comparing drug cartels to terrorist organizations and advocating for the use of military force to combat them. The U.S. administration's efforts to combat drug cartels include military interventions, with the Department of Defense conducting 44 naval strikes on suspected drug smugglers, and this results in at least 150 deaths. These actions highlight the increasing reliance on military assets to neutralize threats posed by drug cartels in the region. The aggressive stance taken by the Trump administration reflects a broader strategic pivot towards Latin America, seen as critical for regional security and economic stability. Scheduled for this weekend, President Trump will meet with leaders from Latin American countries at a summit near his golf club in Florida. The summit aims to discuss further collaborative efforts and strategies to combat drug cartels effectively. Officials remain committed to ensuring that the fight against drug cartels is not just a law enforcement issue but a matter of national security for the entire region. The situation continues to evolve, with ongoing discussions and planned summits to address the growing threat of drug cartels in Latin America. Since the U.S. and Israel launched a military campaign against Iran on Saturday, Iran has launched thousands of drone and missile attacks targeting Israel, U.S. military bases, and energy facilities across the Persian Gulf. The attacks are part of Iran's strategy to create regional instability and fear, potentially pressuring U.S. allies to halt their campaign against Iran. Iran's attacks, which have caused casualties and disrupted energy production, have been directed not only at Israeli and American targets, but also at embassies and facilities in Turkey and Azerbaijan. The U.S. and Israel, in response, have carried out hundreds of airstrikes, inflicting heavy damage on Iranian targets. The conflict has escalated rapidly since the death of Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This prompts a series of retaliatory strikes and counterstrikes. Iran's strategy aims to regionalize the conflict and instill fear to pressure allies of the U.S. to apply diplomatic pressure. However, this approach may be backfiring, as the attacks are pushing Gulf states closer to the U.S. and increasing regional alignment against Iran. Gulf states are now seeking to protect their infrastructure and civilian populations by acquiring more weapons and finding ways to broker an end to the war. The situation remains tense, with both sides continuing to assess the costs and benefits of their actions. Officials are now focusing on diplomatic avenues to de-escalate the conflict and mitigate further destabilization in the region. Republican Representative Tony Gonzales of Texas has withdrawn from his reelection bid after admitting to an affair with a former staff member who later died by suicide. This development comes as House Republican leaders and the Ethics Committee are now investigating Gonzales' conduct. Gonzales, who is currently serving his third term, made the admission in an interview on Tuesday. He stated that he had a lapse in judgment and took full responsibility for his actions. The former staff member, Regina Ann Santos Aviles, died by suicide in September 2025. The affair allegations have caused significant political turmoil within the Republican Party and in Texas. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Majority Leader Steve Scalise, and Whip Tom Emmer have urged Gonzales to withdraw from the race. The pressure on Gonzales intensified as several Republican lawmakers called for him to step aside and introduced resolutions to punish him. Despite the calls for his resignation, Gonzales was not asked to resign outright to maintain the Republican majority in the House, which they hold by a slim margin. The investigation by the House Ethics Committee could further impact Gonzales' political career and the Republican majority in the House. As the situation continues to develop, all eyes will be on the Ethics Committee's findings and how they will affect the ongoing political dynamics in Washington. President Donald Trump has announced the replacement of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem amid mounting controversy. Noem will be succeeded by Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, effective at the end of this month. This decision marks the first significant cabinet change in Trump's second term and comes after criticism over the department's immigration enforcement tactics and federal spending on high-profile advertising campaigns. Noem's tenure at Homeland Security was characterized by her aggressive enforcement of Trump's immigration policies and high-profile actions that often put her in the spotlight. She was one of the administration's most visible figures, often seen on the front lines of enforcement actions. However, her approach has been met with significant backlash. This includes criticism for her personal spending of federal funds on advertising campaigns featuring herself, and for her controversial comments following the deaths of 2 U.S. citizens during an enforcement operation in Minneapolis. Trump's decision to replace Noem with Mullin, a conservative ally, reflects a political strategy to address growing public unease with the administration's approach to immigration. Mullin is known for his hardline stance on immigration and is expected to continue enforcing Trump's policies. His leadership style may differ from Noem's high-profile approach. The change in leadership signals a recalibration in how the administration handles the delicate issue of immigration enforcement as it navigates an election year. Whether this move will lead to further cabinet reshuffles remains to be seen. However, it underscores Trump's willingness to make strategic changes to maintain support and navigate political challenges.